Hello and welcome. Thanks for spending some time with us today as we talk about creating a successful lead generation and sales development strategy. My name is Chad Collette. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Ledu Partners, where we help businesses transform their approach to sales, marketing, and customer service by aligning these teams to focus on improving their customers' experience. For those of you on the webinar today that are familiar with Ledu Partners, you may know that we are a Microsoft Dynamics Gold partner, a Salesforce Silver partner, and a partner with two of the leading marketing automation solutions on the market in Act-On Software and ClickDimensions. But you may not realize that we're also providing inside sales and customer care consulting and outsourcing. That's how we have a great resource right here at Ledu Partners joining us today to talk about how to help align marketing and sales teams around a strategy utilizing sales development reps that will bridge the gap from lead generation to lead qualification. Now, before I introduce our presenter, I have a couple of housekeeping tips that I want to cover. First, I want to mention that today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand after our live sessions. Tomorrow morning, all attendees will receive a follow-up email after the webinar with a link to access the presentation. We encourage you to share this with anyone else within your company or in your network. Now, to provide the best audio quality, we have everyone in listen-only mode. But if you have a question, we really want to hear those. So please submit them in the question pane of your GoToWebinar control panel. We got a pretty full agenda today, but we will definitely follow up with you for each question offline. So fire them to us. Now let me introduce our presenter for today, Greg Dove. Greg is the General Manager of the Inside Sales and Customer Care Outsourcing and Consulting Program at Ledu Partners. With over 15 years of sales management and development experience, Greg is also an active inside sales consultant and trainer for companies throughout North and South America. Greg, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Chad, and thank you everyone for attending. With that, we'll get going. So, creating a successful lead generation and sales development strategy. I'll admit it's a topic that is certainly a mouthful, probably creates a lot of confusion, and that's why we've chosen to shed a little light on it, and I hope we can do that for you all today. So these are the new leads. These are the Glengarry leads, and to you they're gold. And while many of you might be familiar with this from the movie Glengarry Ross, it's kind of a funny quote, but hopefully the part that really resonates, and to you they're gold, and by that I mean these leads. And one of the best way to ensure that we're giving gold leads to sales is to use a approach that incorporates sales development representatives or lead generation. So let's jump into it and show you how you can do that. Today we're going to cover the definitions for lead generation and sales development. We'll look at some of the ongoing trends. We'll look at the representative profile, so what a typical hire for this looks like. We'll review some of the qualification models, look at the qualification process. We'll give you some good metrics to measure, and then we'll close it with a case study. So, definitions: a lead, a person or company who has indicated an interest in your company's products or services. So when I think of this, it's really the first part to your customer sale, and there's varying definitions for leads, but this is the one that I most commonly come across, and this is where we want to start. Lead generation. This is the marketing process of soliciting or attracting inquiries from potential customers or clients. And really, this is marketing's job, and a lot of times this is where we find a disconnect between sales and marketing. The marketing department feels they're doing a good job of pushing the leads to sales, and sales getting them and saying, well, they weren't quite as great as you thought they were. And really, that's where lead qualification comes in. So that's where we take these leads, and the sales team will take the initial evaluation and qualify them, and then turn them over to sales so we can create a much higher probability to close that sale. So some of the trends we're seeing in lead generation. In 2016 and beyond, we've seen that social selling is really becoming a widely adopted practice for salespeople and for consumers. So the channels that stick out most commonly are Twitter and LinkedIn, and these are really important for you to understand and to adapt. I can tell you for sure that I have many reps that are doing lead generation, and they're using LinkedIn to look at the prospects or leads before they call them, and then also using LinkedIn to push out communications to hopefully attract some of those leads to come their way. We haven't seen as much with Twitter, or the clients that I work with aren't as engaged with Twitter, but the other one that they really are looking towards is Facebook. So I would encourage you, if you're not already using these on your lead generation process, to consider it and make sure you're staying on top of it. In a recent survey, 75% of the business buyers told us they conduct a great deal of research online before they're actually making that offline purchase. And I'm finding this to be more and more true every day, and I think that's going to continue because we really are becoming more focused on doing the research prior to making that decision. And a funny story that I'll share with you, in working with a client recently in Texas, he had purchased a delivery truck, and I believe the price was somewhere around $70,000. And the story he shared with me that the first time he went to the dealership or met someone at that dealership was when he went to pick it up. Everything else was done online, and I think that's really just evidence of what we're talking about here, about a more educated buyer and consumer. So the buying process has changed as we've seen. The internet has really created an abundance of information, and it's leading to these self-directed buyers. So as an organization, you need to make sure sales and marketing is aligned to be out there for those self-directed buyers to find you. And once they've found you, the challenge is what to do with them next, and that's where inside sales and lead qualification really comes into play and really becomes a vital component to that process. So how things used to be and how we're seeing them now. It used to be you would represent the company, and now we're moving to a model where it's more represent the customer. We used to go out and find customers, but as we've discussed, now the customer is finding us. So we need to make sure we're pushing out the information so we can be found. In the past, you could really push out advertising to the mass, and it was kind of a one-size-fits-all approach, but now we're seeing it really needs to be the one-to-one targeting to get that purchaser or that buyer to move towards your product or service. Used to be more of a point-in-time blast, so a campaign going out once or maybe twice a year, but now it's really, that's the starting point, and then it's fostering and nurturing and developing that continuous relationship is really what's working. And also you used to have isolated channels, but now it's much more integrated. So again, these are constantly evolving, and you need to be aware of them as you drive your sales process. So when we look at inbound marketing, it's really the process of helping customers find you, as we discussed, and that's what the market is really turning into. So we need to be a part of that early, and some of the best ways to do that are through search engine optimization, having a good website presence, but not only that website, but once you get them to that website, have some case studies for them to review. Have good content on how your product or services can meet their needs. Have some videos, and one of the best things that you can do, as long as you're driving them to the website, begin that first dialogue with them by having a chat. I'm seeing more and more customers that are rolling out chat, so I highly encourage you to do that to continue to drive that first contact with them. And then obviously social media we've talked about, but if you can, get blogs out there and use the blogs and the social media to drive them to your website. Outbound marketing, really, this is the first step in the process. So how do we get found? And it's really through email marketing. You can do pay-per-click ads, direct mail, events, and obviously there's probably some other things that may apply in your industry. I think trade shows are also a pretty good way. But the key takeaway here is if you're going to go through all of these focuses to drive people, make sure you follow up. So if you have an event or you have a trade show, capture that information and then begin your process to hopefully to get down to that one-on-one interaction with your customer. Sales development reps. So like we discussed, the gap between marketing and sales, it depends on who you talk to, but there's usually some level of blame going on. And one of the best ways to really overcome that is to have this middle person, and that person is really, their job is to help pass that along and qualify it. So go back to our Glengarry, that's turning that lead into gold. So inside sales or lead generation reps can really do that for you. And what they need to do is review the marketing generated leads, whether they're inbound or outbound, and then it's really just contacting that prospect and qualifying the leads and delivering those that are qualified to outside sales or that sales account executive so they can move it to the next step. An important step here is also disqualifying that lead. A lot of times people are afraid to get the answer no. And what I would encourage is make sure in your lead gen or your sales development that you're asking the right questions to either qualify it and push it along or disqualify it, because there's no sense in just spinning your wheels on someone who's never going to say yes. So why lead qualification? My thought here, and I've preached this for a long time, is I'll take quality over quantity any day, and I think most salespeople would agree with that. So the more qualified the lead, the greater our chances to land that sale and produce that revenue. And if we're going to be doing that, we know that time is limited, so we need to be more efficient, and let's focus on deals that we are most likely to close. It's a real critical part of the process, not only for you as a sales organization and a lead generator and marketing, and we've talked about the importance for sales, but also it's a really good value to the prospect because they're being treated and handled in a way that qualifies and gets a lot of the initial pre-work done so they can move into let's close this sale. So think about your prospect here. And it also creates a really, really good impression for your brand and for your company. So this SDR or lead gen rep, they really are becoming a trusted advisor to not only your prospect, but they're also becoming a trusted resource for marketing and sales. So what does the profile of a lead gen or SDR look like? And I like to keep it real simple when I look at this, and I recommend two things above anything else. Number one, hire someone who has experience doing this role because it's not for anyone. So I would recommend you find someone who has a minimum of 2 years of experience doing this. And secondly, they should also be someone who has chosen this as a career because, again, it's not for everyone. And some of the traits that you want to look at, you need to have someone who's very persistent. They need to be able to accept rejection because they're going to get a lot of it. But then the other thing is it takes someone with a little bit of a special moxie, if you will. We're looking for someone who's clever, a little bit outside of the box, because sometimes you need to go to some things that are out of the ordinary to get past the gatekeeper or to engage with that prospect. So make sure you're taking all those things into consideration because a typical salesperson may not be a good lead generator. And then above, and right along with everything else, once they get to that decision maker and they're talking to them, make sure they're able to just be quiet and listen because if they get them talking, those needs will surface and we'll be able to identify if we can help them or not with our product or service. So some of the framework for our lead qualification. As with any other industry, there's all kinds of acronyms. Here we see BANT, ANUM, FAINT, CHAMP, and I think that's great that we have all these different ways to do it, but take a look at them and look for the common themes. So we need to understand, is there a budget or funds to make this purchase or transaction? Is the person we're talking to, are they the decision maker? If not, are they part of that decision process, or do you need to talk to someone else? Is there a need? Quite possibly there is, but when is that need? Is it in a month from now, 2 weeks from now, or a year from now? And as you look at all of these, they all contain components of those. So, pick one or maybe take the best of all of them, but make sure you're taking these things into consideration when you're doing your qualification. Asking the right questions. So BANT is probably the most popular. It was developed by IBM, and really what it is, it's the framework for the sales development rep to qualify and ask the right questions to move that to the person who's going to close that close that deal. And while BANT is good and the other ones are all good, every customer and every sale is different. So understand and learn from your past situations, analyze the data, and then use that to develop your own process and make it what works for you. So some of the contact strategies that we see, you need to do some type of pre-call research and planning, and I cannot stress this enough. And I would even take it so far as to say, have some type of pre-call checklist, and have that checklist contain the things that are most important to identify in that call to move it along. You need to make sure you have the decision maker. If you get a lead, it'll probably have the decision maker's name on it. Make sure that that's the right person. And in a pre-call, what you can do is use those tools, LinkedIn or the internet, to search and see if that really is the decision maker. And even once you get a hold of them, make sure that they still are that decision maker. And if they are, ask if they're the sole decision maker or if there's other people involved. But make sure you're doing that. Have a clear plan of attack. So the best day or time of the day, week to make contact, very, very important. When you first start, you won't know those things. But after a week or a week and a half, you should start to develop that and understand that, and then you can adhere to it. So whether it's Wednesday, maybe it's Tuesday, it's probably not going to be Monday morning, and it's probably not going to be Friday afternoon. But understand what it is and take that time and make your connections then. Be prepared for a gatekeeper. It's inevitable, and we'll talk about that. Have voicemail, plan for it, and have a strategy around it. Be persistent. We see that it takes about a minimum of 6 attempts before you can actually reach that decision maker. And I recently read that most people stop after 3 attempts. So right there, if we're stopping at 3 attempts, we're probably not getting to that decision maker. So know that going in and plan for it. And then just make sure whatever you're engaging, whenever you're engaging, whether it be through voicemail, email, gatekeeper, decision maker, be real and authentic and be prepared for that interaction. So diving a little bit deeper here, the gatekeeper, odds are you're going to have to get through one. And as long as you're getting through one, start at the highest level and work your way down. You may not end up needing to talk at that highest level to get the decision made, but it's okay to start there, and maybe you gain some momentum along the way by winning them over when you get to the right person. So make sure that you're treating that gatekeeper like gold. Treat them like you are talking to the president of the company, because they're that vital to your success. Use personal touch. So if you can, remember something about that gatekeeper, so when you engage with them down the road, you can bring something up that will relate to them, and that just helps you build a little credibility and helps you develop some rapport. There's many ways to do it. It could be a handwritten note, it could be a personalized email, maybe a card around the holidays, whatever it is, but just make sure that you're working really closely to get through that gatekeeper. Sometimes they're going to put up a pretty big resistance, so you need to quickly relate a challenge or problem that could be ongoing in that company, and how your service or product can meet that. if you work with the gatekeeper and they give you the contact name, CC them on your communication and let them know that you're following through the way that you told them you would. This next point here, be honest. I cannot emphasize that enough. I've had many people tell me that what they do is get to the gatekeeper and say, well, I'm trying to reach George, and George should be expecting my call. Well, the gatekeeper checks with George, and George has no idea who you are, so you've already lost credibility because you were trying to pull a quick one. Don't do that. Be honest, work with integrity, and treat them like a vital part of the process. And no matter what you come up with, the attack that works for you, and it's not just for the gatekeeper, it's for the decision maker, practice and role play, because it's just going to make you more efficient. So once you get to the decision maker, what do? So we've gone through a lot of work to get here. We want to make sure that we're going to be effective. So make sure you introduce yourself, your company, and why you're calling. If it's a warm lead, reference why they, why it's a warm lead. So did they respond to an email that you sent? Did they click into some information you sent them and show an interest in a specific product? Maybe they attended your trade show or your webinar. So reference that so they know that there's some mutual interest there, and that's why you're following up. Position your company and relate to that prospect. If I'm a customer and I'm being approached, and the person on the other end of the phone can relate to my business by saying, you know what, George, I've worked with a lot of construction companies, and I know that one of the things that's important to you is X, Y, or Z, and here's how my product can help you with that. Boy, you just built some credibility with me, and I'm much more willing to talk and engage with you. If they're interested, have a plan and know what you need to do. The worst thing you can do is get someone who's interested, talk to them, and think you have everything, and then hang up and then realize, uh-oh, I didn't get this information. So if they're interested, make sure you gather all of the data and information that's necessary to qualify that lead before you pass it on to sales. And if you're going to pass it on to sales and they're going to be following up with an email or maybe a call to set an appointment, let the decision maker know that so they know what to expect from you. It just sets you up for continued success in this process. If they're not interested, again, don't be afraid to push them to that point where they let you know they're not interested, because it's okay. I'd rather have someone say no up front than spin my wheels for 10 calls. Verify that, if they're not interested, maybe there's someone else in the organization that is, so ask that question. And if possible, just because they say no now doesn't mean 6 months down the road that they might not be. So go ahead and ask if it's okay to follow up with them. And then maybe in the meantime, you can send out a few other things to keep them engaged and stay in front of them. So when you reach out that next time, maybe the interest is growing a little bit. Voicemails are a very key component to any lead generation strategy. So make sure you have a plan for it. Have some go-to statements or some key things that you want to make sure you bring out in every single voicemail. State something in there that relates to them or to why your product or service, what need that might meet, and make it quick. And the next point here is maybe you want to send an email after that voicemail. So in that voicemail, let them know, here's why I'm calling, explain why, but let them know I'm also going to send you an email that will contain the same information, and they should really align closely. Be persistent. 6 attempts, we talked about that is kind of the magic number, and a lot of people stop at 3. So have a strategy, whether it's to, on the first attempt, leave a voicemail and then send an email. That's fine. Or maybe the first one you leave a voicemail, and then the next time you reach out, send an email. Just have a plan and make sure that you're tracking and analyzing what works for you, and then replicate that as much as you can. It might not work for every customer, but the more you look at it and analyze it, the better the odds of you replicating your success are. And then if you can, use some type of tracking software for your email. So it's great to know if a customer clicks into the content you're sending them, and then if that can load into CRM, boy, that's an even a bigger bonus to me. So some of the metrics that you'll want to look at in lead generation. So we have some pretty high level ones, which would be number of calls per day, number of emails per day, number of decision makers contacted. Those are all very important, and I think you need to look at them. But the main ones that sales and marketing are going to be concerned with are how many SQLs, sales qualified leads, did we actually send to the sales team? Of those SQLs, how many are we closing? What's the percentage of those that actually turn into business? And then, are there any that's being rejected? I would hope not, but if there are some SQLs being sent to sales that are rejected, you better go back and figure out why and correct that in a hurry, because eventually, if you keep doing that, they're going to lose a little bit of the trust that they have with these SQLs that are coming to them. So fix that, and hopefully that percentage is low. And then cost per lead. So figure out when you have a lead list and you run a campaign, how many deals you actually close, and that'll give you your cost per lead. And with any of these metrics that I've mentioned, again, you need CRM to help you manage it, especially if you consider a good lead gen person is probably making 100 dials per day. I don't know how you can possibly manage that if you weren't using CRM. So make sure you have that, because it's vital. Lastly, we have a case study for one of our actual clients here at Ledgeview, and they were seeking to improve their sales development and lead generation efforts. So they partnered with us, and we created a team that was focused on sales development and activation. And in this particular case, sales development would be identifying bigger customers that could maybe become national accounts, and then the activation team would work with those national accounts at the corporate level to understand all the regional players, and then reach out to create awareness for that national contract, and then hopefully help them get onto that national contract. And the results that we had, we were able to really help them grow. We had about 14% qualified opportunity conversion rate with a clean list, which is pretty good. Conversely, if it's not a clean list, we only had about 7%. So you can see the importance of a clean list. But even 7% isn't too bad. We averaged 100 decision maker contacts per close to 700 attempts. So if it takes 700 attempts for you to get to 100 decision makers, that really emphasizes the point about making sure once you get there, you do it right. And with this particular client, we were able to have an ROI of over 40%, and we quickly continued to add people, and now we've have 4 people calling specifically for this client just to help them with lead qualification and activation. Finally, it's okay to ask for help. We understand that this is a very confusing and complicated process in your sales cycle, and we can help you. We offer training and consulting and inside sales, lead generation, and customer care. We do a lot of coaching. We can develop programs and help you through establishing standard operating procedures and best practices. So we can help you if you already have this or you're looking to do it. And we also understand you have your core competencies. So if you don't want to create your own, you can outsource your inside sales, lead generation, or customer care to us, which many of our clients do. With that, I would say thank you to everyone for attending. As Chad said, there was a lot of content here, and we tried to keep it short. So if you have any questions, feel free to follow up with us, and I thank you for your time. Back to you, Chad.
Thanks a lot, Greg. Really appreciate it, and a lot of fantastic information there. We're right at that 30-minute mark, and I know everybody's got a busy schedule. So I want to thank everyone for attending today. Keep an eye on your email inbox for an email from us containing the on-demand presentation of this, and also some great resources available at Ledgeview Partners. Again, any questions you have, Greg Dove's information is right there. Thank you very much and have a fantastic day.